I just want to ask you a simple question at this point of time. Tell me, when you have wanted a hug, have you been able to ask for it in your life? Have you been able to ask your wife for it? Have you been able to ask your friends for it? Have you been the person who's gotten there? That hit a bit deep. And you know what's funny? I could have end up used a hug at that point of time, but she was my therapist, so. Can I please have a hug? He asked. One day, 4 years ago, in an engineering college in Nagpur, where the boys to girl ratio is 10 is to 1 in favor of the boys, but not a favorite of the boys, one of them approached me after a wholesome kind of talk that I had done to a few hundred students. He was a tall, lanky boy with 90s Shah Rukh Khan energy. He had an unpressed shirt with one side tucked out and the other tucked in. He was sporting an unkempt beard, but that was getting a bit more Janwar than Jawan. And he came up to me and he asked me for a hug. It was a very unusual request in a campus setting, but I acted unsurprised and I gave him that hug. He said, "Thank you, sir. मुझे किसी ने आज तक गले नहीं लगा. No one's ever given me a hug before." Flashback to 4 years before that. I had just turned 30. Yes, I know I look very young. You are. My life at that time was awesome. You know how every Indian middle class boy has a checklist of all the things he needs to achieve in order to be considered settled in life? So I would have been considered settled AF. And somehow I wasn't happy. I don't know. I mean, for an Indian man of privilege, I had everything in order to be considered to be having a successful life, and somehow I was not living it. I was going from one day to another, chasing one goalpost to another, scrolling through one notification to another, hoping that the likes on my posts would make my life feel whole. But I was empty inside for a very long time. And then one day, I broke. A doctor diagnosed me with clinical anxiety. You know how you're on a plane and you hit turbulence and your heart sinks suddenly and you feel like you're going to crash? Well, anxiety is a bit like that, except that your heart is sinking all the time. You know the plane is going to crash and there's nothing you can do about it. What all I could think was, why is this happening to me? My life is awesome. The search for answers led me to a therapist. And believe me, that was the last place I expected to see myself at. Because men don't go to therapists. Because, of course, men don't need fixing. Because, as we all know, men don't break. That's not a very manly thing to do. As a human, I used to tell I love you to my wife every single day, still do. I used to call my mother every single day, still do. I used to write emotional long posts on social media every single week, still do. I used to cry every time I used to see Hrithik Roshan hug Shah Rukh Khan and K3G on the bed and say, "Ghan aa jao bhaiya." Every single time, still do. I think I could have totally done therapy, so I gave it a shot. And you know what? I had nothing to be afraid of. Just like my life, therapy was awesome. I used to dig deep, I used to express myself, and I used to impress my therapist. I was basically killing it at therapy. I could have been the best patient ever. Until, of course, that one day, everything changed. It started off as any other day. I was casually winning it at expression games when my therapist told me that she's finally figured out what is my issue. And I was like, thank God that only took like 20,000 rupees to get to. She told me, and let me remember if I'm getting this right. She diagnosed me by saying that I am unemotional. I am unemotional. Me. I was like, do you even know me, therapist? Don't you know that I write emotional long posts on social media every week? Don't you know that I cry when I see Shahrukh and Ritik hug on a bench in K3G? Do you know that my friends come to me when they have emotional problems and I help them for free, by the way? I don't take money for that. The fact that I'm getting so emotional about this proves that I have emotions. I was so hurt by what she said that I was ready to break up with her. But then she explained herself very gentle. Of course, first we did a breathing exercise. She asked me a question. She said, Nikhil, tell me what happens when your wife comes back from a bad day at work? I said, well, first, she asked for a hug. Then she tells me everything that went bad about her day. And then, of course, when she feels better, we watch something until she falls asleep. And then I watch something until I watch us. Modern love in a nutshell. She said, great. Now tell me what happens when you come back after a bad day of it. I said, well, if you knew me by now, you would know that I keep my home and work life separate. I don't like burdening my wife with my problems. I want to ensure that I keep everything inside because eventually it all goes away, as we all know. She said, very gently, without a hint of emotion, by the way, yes, Nikhil, that's what you think. You and every other man in India. Ouch, I said emotionally. I am a man. I am every other man in India. She said, yes, every man in India is afraid to be vulnerable. Every man in India takes the burden of his shoulder on, or takes the burden of the world on his shoulders. And he doesn't like expressing to anybody. He keeps his relationships and feelings separate until one day those suppressed feelings come out as either a heart attack or alcoholism or violence or, in your case, anxiety. Men are unemotional, she explained, but not because they don't have emotions, because they don't know how to express them. I heard that out, kind of tried to understand. She saw me processing, and then she said, yes, Nikhil, I know what you're thinking. I just want to ask you a simple question at this point of time. Tell me, when you have wanted a hug, have you been able to ask for it in your life? Have you been able to ask your wife for it? Have you been able to ask your friends for it? Have you been the person who's gotten there? That hit a bit deep. And you know what's funny? I could have end up used a hug at that point of time, but she was my therapist, so Uh, I did not know what to say after that, not because I didn't have the words, but she was right. I didn't know how to express them. It's taken me 8 years to find those words. And today, my dear friends, I'm going to express. You know, just like every person of every gender, I was also born with a checklist, along with the story of my life that was written for me even before I was born. As a boy, I was told I would have to do an engineering, then an MBA, then get a house, a bank balance, a designation, then get married and have kids, and then get settled. But you know what the fact is? If I didn't want to, it didn't really matter because I never really had a choice. Because at some point, you realize that settle is another word for compromise. And no matter how much or how long you fight, a compromised society will force you to eventually settle. And then one day you will have to repeat your cycle and you'll be given another checklist, this time for your kids. Then you'll have to send them to school, to college, get them married, make sure they have a house, a car, a bank balance, a designation. And then once they are settled, will the matter of your entire life be settled? And if you don't want to do any of that, well, tough shit. Tough shit. I realized as a boy growing up, because I had a checklist, I was also told to be the man of the house. I was told that my worth would be measured by my marks, by my means, by my money. until of course my I started inflating my self-worth with my net worth. And I realized that since the time I was born, I was not allowed to have emotions. Because even in this country, even when you're a boy, you're actually a man. And as a man, you have to be strong. You can't feel pain. We can't cry. We can't complain. We can't show heart until one day we can't take it anymore and we break open, break down, or break apart. I really wish the society would create safe spaces for everyone. Because it is a tragedy that our boys are not getting hugged because we force them to be men before they can ever learn what it means to be human. So today, after 8 years of learning, unlearning, and some expensive therapy, I'm just a human standing in front of all you beautiful humans, asking you to please hug the men in your lives. Tell them that their stories will not be written by a checklist. They will be written by their hearts, by their instincts, by their feelings, their failures, and of course, their Funko Pops. They'll be written by their bad jokes and their good smiles, by their momentary riz and their memorable romances. They will be written not because of the things they own or the things they have, but they'll be written because the people they are, with souls full of life and spirits full of love. And to all the boys who've not been hugged before, because you're told to be a man, yaar, please, dost, ask for that hug. Because we are human faced, yeah. Thank you.